Hello everyone, Royce here and welcome to the channel Sansevieria 101. So for this episode we are going to feature another trifasciata cultivar, and this trifasciata cultivar is also very controversial. It's one of the oddball Sansevieria trifasciatas that you will encounter. It is part of the trifasciata species still, and if you ask why it's still a trifasciata when it looks very different to the usual blade leaf trifasciata species that we have been discussing, it's because that this trifasciata, like I mentioned, it is an oddball type of trifasciata. So later on, or in a bit, we will be discussing the characteristics of this said trifasciata. Although pattern wise, you would say that the pattern is very similar to trifasciatas, wherein the normal trifasciatas, the non-variegated ones, are having the leaf pattern of banded look, wherein you see the traverse banding of dark green, and then this whitish color is actually pale green instead of white, but it really looks whitish than pale green. So this, like I mentioned, is one of the oddball Sansevieria trifasciata cultivars, and it has been said to have originated here in the Philippines, where I am currently, and in the locality they have started calling this specimen as Sansevieria trifasciata Crested Hahnii, but later on people have been calling it as Hahnii Gaster or trifasciata Gaster. So I'm wondering, because most of the localities here and most Asian folks first called it Crested Hahnii, so I do not know when or where the update came from, since it was not published, that people are started to ID this Sansevieria trifasciata into trifasciata Gaster. So for folks that have been wondering why it belongs to the trifasciata species, because for one, no one has ever seen it bloom, because the short leaf trifasciatas are very hard to make bloom. So there's only several instances where I saw Sansevieria trifasciata short leaf group blooming. Also, for everyone's information, if you have this plant and you wanna make sure that it is really a trifasciata species, since you can't forget about trying to make it bloom, because like I mentioned, the short leaf trifasciatas rarely bloom. So this is one of the instances where I can prove that Sansevieria's blooming or flowering cannot be controlled. It is species dependent, especially the ones that the one that I'm showing you right now. It is not just species dependent, but it is also cultivar dependent. That means some cultivars will give you flowers from time to time. Some cultivars will not give you inflorescence even for one lifetime. So there are Sansevierias that you can't force to bloom. So if anyone posts something like here's what you do to make your Sansevierias bloom, that's bullshit. I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry to curse on this channel, but that's bull. You cannot force them to bloom. Flowering Sansevierias are species dependent. There are species that are blooming every cycle. There are species that rarely blooms, like the one I'm showing you right now. That's in terms of species. Species are also broken down to cultivars, and this right now is considered to be a cultivar of trifasciata. Trifasciata are blade leaf. Sansevierias very tall, Now you see a cultivar of it that is an oddball. It is not a hybrid. It came from Sansevieria trifasciata. If you want to prove it, there is one way. So one way is to pluck off a leaf of this Sansevieria, and then you leaf propagate it. When you leaf propagate it and it gives you offset, you will see why it is called and why it belongs to the trifasciata species, because the leaf propagation will revert back to a very short leaf trifasciata, not necessarily Hahnii, but very short and narrow leaf trifasciata. I'm not really in tune to calling them dwarf, because when you say dwarf, it's a wide array. It's a gray area, because among the dwarf, you can still classify it as short leaf that is having narrow leaf, or short leaf that is having wide leaf. So calling them dwarf is still it's a gray area for me. So also the dwarf may become a stacking form. That means stacking, it will keep on stacking and it will grow taller, even taller than the normal full-size trifasciata. They can grow taller than that if you can grow them continuously. So the main problem with Sansevieria shortleaf is that the base part will probably be attacked by mites, and it will start rotting from there. So if it starts rotting from there, most probably your shortleaf trifasciata will no longer grow in stacking form, because from there it will be cut off and the rot will start from that base leaf, and you will just be surprised that your trifasciata will just fall down. So that's one of the reasons why it's very hard to make them or grow them in stacking form. But I guess in one of the first trifasciata short leaf that I have featured, I have shared there a picture of a fellow Sansevieria grower that grew Sansevieria jade dwarf into more than 5 feet tall, 7 feet, and it is stacking form. Although it is short leaf, you can no longer call it dwarf. That's why I'm saying dwarf is a gray area. These short leaf trifasciata can grow very, very tall. In terms of surface area, they will outclass the full size so-called Sansevieria. So it is more accurate to have them classified as short leaf, mid leaf, and the long leaf trifasciata. The long leaf is the original one. The original trifasciata is a long blade-like leaf Sansevieria species. So it is more accurate to classify them as long leaf, mid leaf, and short leaf. Among the short leaf, there can be narrow leaf. Among the mid leaf, there could be also narrow leaf. So those are what we can accurately group them as a Sansevieria trifasciata cultivar. So I'm not sure with the other experts, but I have said my piece. So if you take it or if you leave it, then so be it. And then also one other thing, the Sansevieria trifasciata cultivar that I'm showing you right now is controversial, because like I mentioned, locally it is known as Hahnii Crested or Crested Hahnii. Then when it got out of the Philippines, it started to have another name, which is Hahnii Gaster or Gaster. So here's what I can tell you about the names. Which name would I prefer? Although that is not in my power, because as of the current, it is widely known and people have been calling it as trifasciata Gaster. So Gaster has been compared to the other genus of the plant kingdom called Gasteria, and some people really confuse this specimen as Gasteria, so that for me is a big no. This plant right here is trifasciata. It is a Sansevieria. It is not a Gasteria. So using the word Gaster on this cultivar is not just confusing. It's not apt to do so because for me it doesn't look like any of the Gasteria. Although they look very similar to it, it causes confusion to people who are not really experts on Gasterias and Sansevierias. One other thing, compared to Gasteria and Crested Hahnii, the one that I'm showing you right now, is if you try to uh, describe it, it is a crested type. When it pops, when you leaf propagate it, it gives you offset of a Hahnii type, which is short leaf, although it's a different kind of Hahnii trifasciata, but it's still very similar to the Hahnii cultivar of the trifasciata species. So it is more apt and it is more, should I say, practical to call it Crested Hahnii or Hahnii Crested, whichever. I don't. It doesn't really matters to me. What matters to me is, folks, please use the name that is apt for the Sansevieria, not a name that will confuse the Sansevieria into other genuses in the plant kingdom. So I would really advise you not to lump over this Sansevieria into a Gasteria because they look different, although they look very similar. They are different in reality and in actuality. So it's ill advised to call it as such. Although this Sansevieria trifasciata is not published yet, I would really suggest to use the name as it is apt to it. It looks like crested to me. If you have pets like the iguana, there are crested iguanas. The leaf that you see in front of you right now are like the crest on the iguana, the lizard iguanas. If you look up the pet, you would see that the crest, the leaves on this Sansevieria cultivar are more of crests that are comparable to crested lizards, compared to being compared or called a Gasteria, which confuses, or Gaster, which confuses to the Gasteria genus of the plant kingdom. So that's my 2 cents into calling it Gaster or Crested Hahnii. Next, we'll probably do measurements before we end this content. So the leaves of Crested Hahnii, like I mentioned, I don't have inflorescence because it's almost impossible to make this Sansevieria bloom for me. And the measure of the leaf is 6 inches. I don't have a measure of more than 6 inches, although I'm trying. It's really just about 6 inches. The trying to search for a leaf that would be longer than 6, but it's just about 6 inches. Like I always say, the short leaf trifasciatas would measure just about 3 to 6 inches. If it's more than that, then it would be classified into the mid-leaf sized trifasciata of the species. So we're done with the leaf length. Leaf width is very difficult because the Sansevieria Gaster or Sansevieria Crested Hahnii is not a flat leaf Sansevieria. The leaf are chunky, they're fleshy, so if you break them, they're not as flat as the usual Sansevieria trifasciata. They will be flat though if you leaf propagate them. If you leaf propagate them, they will revert back to being an evident trifasciata cultivar or trifasciata species, wherein trifasciatas have uh, thin leaf but wide. So right now, what I can describe it as, it's not thin leaf, it is chunky, and it's like a shriveled leaf, but it's not. It's very healthy though. And then the leaf tips is not like the normal trifasciatas, wherein you have subulate tips. The leaves of Sansevieria Gaster or Sansevieria Crested Hahnii are just pointed, so it's kinda subulate right here, but it's thicker than the usual pointed leaves of Sansevieria trifasciata. So um, although there is a secret into, like I mentioned, classifying it as still trifasciata, if you leaf propagate it, the form will revert back into trifasciata species. So I think I can get a trifasciata for you just to show you what I mean. So I'm going to put down the camera for a bit and then run over and get the Hahnii that I have perhaps featured before this. Alright folks, I just came back and just run, and this is the actual leaf tip of Sansevieria Hahnii, or this one is Hahnii cybert or just trifasciata cybert as it's updated, but this should be the leaf. The leaf, it's tubulate and it's kind of spiky, although it's very brittle to the touch. The one that I'm showing you right now is also brittle, but it is very thick compared to what I've shown you as the tip of the usual trifasciatas. So one way to make this become this is to leaf propagate it, and it will revert back to trifasciata form, although not the wide leaf. This is a wide leaf. They look like the leaf type of a silver frost, which is narrow and short. So that's how I would describe the leaf propagation of Sansevieria trifasciata Gaster or Sansevieria trifasciata Hahnii Crested or Crested Hahnii. So folks, it's up to you if you want to still call it Gaster or if you want to call it Crested Hahnii. I'm just saying that for me it's more apt to call it Crested Hahnii because it makes sense and it is the definition of the specimen or plant itself or the cultivar itself. So aside from that, I think we have discussed everything with regards to Sansevieria trifasciata Gaster or Hahnii Crested. Like I mentioned, it is still unpublished, and I have been looking for books about it. One Chinayan mentioned it, but did not publish anything about this Sansevieria. And I have also received information that it was one of attorney Pepito Mercado's friend, which he named his hybrid after. It was Tata Montilla, who distributed Crested Hahnii into the U.S. So when he distributed it, it was named Hahnii Crested or Crested Hahnii. When it reached the U.S., it became Sansevieria trifasciata Gaster or Sansevieria trifasciata Hahnii Gaster, whatever the case. When it left here in the Philippines, it was Hahnii Crested or Crested Hahnii. If you've noted, some of the Asian collectors from Taiwan, from Vietnam, they would still call some of them, especially the old folks, your grandparents would call them Hahnii Crested or Crested Hahnii. They never call them trifasciata Gaster. That is because it originated from the Philippines and people here in locality was calling them Crested Hahnii or Hahnii Crested, whatever the case. So for me though, whatever the experts above me would say, I would accept it. I'm just telling you my 2 cents about why it should be, instead of trifasciata Gaster, it should be called Hahnii Crested, because it's what you see as it is. It is crested. It is part of the Hahnii group. I don't know what else I could say, but that's my thoughts, and I think that this is it for the video. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below, or if you enjoyed watching the channel, please like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. So thank you for watching, folks, and you have a great day.